always feels like it's telling me off. Let's see. Okay. So let me put this up here in case we're bookless. I'm going to do one like that one, just because I don't like doing your homework for you too much. So this whole section here, this section of the book, I'm frozen. This is amazing. Oh no, what did I just do? I don't want to do it. Okay, there you go. Can you turn out that middle light?
Oh no.
I think it's a middle light. All right, memory.
I went back.
Whoa. All right. Let's try this time. Freeze. All right. Okay. Sorry. So the one you asked me about is this one. Good. So let's do this one. So one big thing to notice about all the problems in here is that there are A through F. You must answer all of them. It isn't pick the one that fits or something crazy. So when you read this, you're like, well, they haven't given me much information, but you just have to give me, it says give examples where appropriate. So for example, let's look at the first one. The fitness center is interested in the mean amount of time a client exercises in the center each week. What is the population then?
All the clients.
Say again?
All the clients.
All the clients
Of this center.
of that fitness center.
Yeah.
I like it. So don't say all fitness center clients, because they don't care about the other fitness centers. They only care about themselves. Don't say all clients, because what are you talking about? Clients of everybody everywhere in the universe? No. You guys with me?
Yeah.
Does this make sense so far? Sample is the first place you could give an example if you want to. What is the sample? What's the definition of sample?
A certain amount of client.
Yeah, subgroup.
Yeah.
So you could say, you could be really boring and say a subgroup of all the clients. Or you could say a randomly selected group of 40 clients from the center. You guys with me?
Yeah.
Was that actually in the problem? No.
No.
But you're giving me an example of what you would do.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay.
What's the parameter? What is the parameter in general? It's a number that describes the population. Oh, okay, I got you. So you're trying to answer the question I like. So now what's the parameter for this? Now be careful. Parameter is always something you're going to be able to calculate. So parameter, and for right now, a parameter is going to be a mean, an average, or it's going to be a percentage. So in this case, what's the parameter? The mean amount of time that you can do it. It's got to describe the what?
The population.
So if you give me an answer for a parameter, you better damn well make sure that it describes the population.
Yeah.
So the mean amount of time that all clients of that fitness center work out each week or exercise each week. You guys with me so far?
Yes.
So it's not good enough to say the mean amount of time that clients work out, because that'll be like, which clients? Why is that a parameter? Yes.
So we are supposed to sort of give it an arbitrary number, like for
No.
40
You
or
could, but no.
no, just
Yeah.
just words.
Yeah, this is the parameter they're trying to get at. You could give it a number as long as you do everything else I just said. Make sure it's a numerical description of the population. The statistic is the same thing we just said. It just has to describe the sample. So for the way that I gave my sample, I would say the statistic is the mean amount of time that the 40 randomly selected clients work out at the center each week. Do you see that? They both said the same thing. Just they said it about two different groups. The parameter talks about the whole population. The statistic talks about the subgroup, the sample. Right? You guys see what I'm saying? So a parameter and a statistic have to be numerical. They have to be right now, either it's going to be a mean or a percentage. It's what I do with my data once I collect it. So too often I have somebody tell me the parameter is all the clients. No, that's the population, and that's not even full enough for the population. It's got to be, so a population sample are groups of things. Parameter statistic is a numerical description of those groups. Okay, maybe. Variable. How do you consider the variable? You think, once I get my sample together, what do I ask each of them?
How much time do you
Yeah.
spend every week?
How much time
Working out.
a client works out in there or exercises in there a week, right? Do you guys see what I'm saying? I don't say average. Doesn't make any sense. Why would my question be, what average? No. Just how long are you in there this week, right? And then the data is definitely where you give examples. 2 hours, 20 hours. I live here, right? Anybody go to the gym ever? When you go to the gym, do you see people, you might be this person, but I go to the gym at odd times whenever I can, and then there's certain people, they are always, no matter what time I go, they're there. Like, sorry, I don't understand. People like to live there, socialize. I'm like, I get in there, freaking work, I get the shit out of there. I don't know, that's me. Okay. Is that better? You guys, all of those work that way. So the sample, you could give a specific number as an example. The data, you really have to give numbers, because that's what the data is. It's just the answers. So you have to give some example answers. I like it. So it's a really good question. Yes?
One more question. So, for example, for the variable, you'd still have to make sure your sentence includes everything, and it means the amount of time each client exercises in that particular fitness center.
At that point, you've already established what you're talking about. So there's just really the question you would ask your sample. So you could include that, but if you don't, you're fine. I would ask them, how long do you work out in a week in the center?
Can the data be like the mean amount of time that each client exercise in the center of the week, like the answer, or it has to be like a number? It would be like the mean amount of
Careful.
time.
The data
from.
would never be the mean, because I can't do the mean until I get all the data.
Okay, so like
And
the
if you
amount
use-
of time every client.
That's the variable. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The variable, that's the variable. This is really weird.
So
I know it
that
always
is
seems very
always
picky.
number.
The variable is the question you ask, and the data are the answers. So when I ask you what the data is, you have to give me examples or numbers or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Because otherwise you're just saying what the variable is. All right, and that's a really tiny point. Were you here last time? No. Are you hopeful? That's what I mean. You're hopeful to get in? Okay. So see me after. Catch up your stuff again. Okay. Anything else from homework? What you got?
Yeah, I tried doing the section 1.2,
Sure.
but I got stuck in the cumulative.
Yeah, because we haven't finished
Okay,
one, so
good.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we barely got a little tiny bit into 1.2.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back into it. That's a beautiful segue. Winner. All right. Can you turn that light back on? Thank you. Okay. So we left off with qualitative and quantitative stuff, right? I think it's the last thing we did. Cool. Can somebody kind of remind me? Quantitative would be truly numerical. I love it. So measurement's very often quantitative. That's not the only kind of quantitative thing. And qualitative with the categorical names. Okay. So let's break those ideas down a little further. This is officially called levels of measurement, which is going to seem a little weird in the first thing. Because the first level of measurement, nominal. So let me see if I can do this. Everybody listen to me. You ready? And you're all like, dude, that's our job right now. Nominal is not number. Has anyone ever heard the phrase de nom? That means pen name. I'll let some of you guys know. What the hell class is this? It's a foreign language class. Okay. Nom is name. So like anybody like Stephen King? If you like Stephen King, you should read Richard Bach. You know what? Because that was his name. That's the pen name he made for himself. So that was like his first book. Richard Bach. It's a really good shit. So a lot of your authors have done the same thing. Nominal is purely name data. That's all it is. There's nothing more to it than just names. So if you went out and said, let's list all the car types that are out in the, all the models that are out in the parking lot. Those are just names of cars, right? Just names. I get way too many people that say the number of woodpeckers in a tree is nominal because it's a number. No. I know nom sounds like number, but no, it's name. So that's weird for a level of measurement, but what that's getting at is this is kind of like the 0th level. There's no real measurement there. It's just a category, it's just a name. The second level is called ordinal. What's your gut tell you that might involve? Order. So have you ever filled out a little card when you go to a restaurant somewhere and it says rate your service here? And if it said poor, excellent, fair, good, wouldn't you go, what the hell? Why is that out of order? Right? It should go from worst to best or best to worst. You with me? Or if you've ever rated faculty here, have you ever filled out that sheet? And it goes from strongly disagree to strongly agree or something? Yeah. But if they went agree, neutral, strongly disagree, you go, wait a minute. What the shit are you trying to pull? Right? You guys with me? Yeah. So that is the kind of data. There's still names, but there's a certain ranking to them. There's an order they want to be in. So don't say, if I started listing BMW, Ford, Hyundai, you wouldn't say those are ordinal because those are in alphabetical order. Do they have to be in that order? No. So ordinal is data that has to be in order to make full sense. Order matters, must be in order to make sense. Okay, I like it. The name gives it away. You gotta love that stuff. These two seem to be qualitative, right? Almost always they're going to be qualitative data. The next two are going to be quantitative in nature. Really in nature. Quantitative in nature. And I'll just put both of them down here. This one's called interval. This one's called ratio. Those are both hopefully semi-familiar words. They don't quite have the same meaning as they did in algebra. But what did an interval mean in algebra? Or what does an interval just mean? Oh, no. No, let's not bring calculus. You're thinking interval.
There you go.
But how do you use interval in like everyday language? You have a certain interval of time in which to do this, like the cable guy. If you're unfortunate enough to still have cable, they'll say, I'll be there in an interval of time between 8 Tuesday and 12 Thursday. Just stay at your house, right? Or else you're gonna miss it. You guys kind of interval is like an interval of time or something, like interval of ages that can eat off the kids' menu pennies. There's a beginning and an end. The interval is a certain length. So if I had an interval that went from 10 to 20, how long is that interval? It goes from 10 to 20. It's 10 long. You guys with me?
Yeah.
What operation did you just use? Subtraction. You with? Yes, with me. Interval is data where subtraction makes sense. So again, this is kind of like that example. Did I talk about or was that my other class? Did I tell you about I had some people from the women's basketball team one semester? And I said to them, jersey numbers are not interval because if you subtract 2 jersey numbers, the answer doesn't mean anything. Unfortunately, she was 16, number 16, she was number 2, and she was number 14. And I'm like, shit. They're like, oh, if you subtract this, you get Michelle. I'm like, damn it. But right, if I subtract 2 zip codes, do I get a number? Yes. Does it mean anything? Doesn't mean a damn thing. Right? Yes. Nope. No. Yes. If I listed a bunch of zip codes that weren't in numerical order, that would be fine. I wouldn't go, what the hell are you trying to pull? Right? They're just areas. And in fact, very often there's a zip code next to another one that isn't like the next in line. Right? Okay. Maybe. A little bit.
So,
Yes.
for example, things can be nominal and ordinal at the same time, right?
Oh, good point.
But they cannot be interval and rate, like ratio at the same time, or they can.
Careful. You ready?
Yeah.
As you move up, every ordinal thing is also nominal. Because you could be like, oh yeah, you're that agree person. So it could be your name, right? Every interval thing is also ordinal. So for example, the year you were born, the year that somebody was born, why is that interval? Because what year were you born, if you're okay telling me? 89. I was born in 1972. So if you subtract those two, from 1989 minus 1972, you get a number. Does the number mean something? Yes. It says how much older I am, right? So year of birth is an example of interval data. But you're that girl, 1989 girl, right? That's your name. And do years want to be in a certain order? Yes. So I really want you to understand. When I ask you a question about what level of data is this, or what level of measurement is this, you tell me the highest level. Yes?
So you said anything that's interval is also ordinal, but not nominal.
No. Everything is interval is both of these. They build on each other.
Okay,
Right? Okay. 1989 is a category. It's a name of a time period, is it not?
yeah.
And those time periods want to be in order. And when I subtract them, the answer makes sense. But when I divide them, if I divided 1989 by 1972, do I get a number?
Yes.
Yes. Does it mean shit?
No.
Don't mean shit. Yes, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe? Maybe. Okay. So interval is subtraction makes sense. Not just can you subtract them, but does it make sense? And then finally, ratio, you should know what that is. What does ratio infer? What operation? Division. So ratio actually has 2 ways to identify it. One is division makes sense. So like I just said, year of birth is not ratio, because I get a number, don't mean shit. Because what if somebody was born in the year 0? Can you be born in the year 0? Not one of you. But could somebody have been born in the year 0?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Huh?
Can?
Of course they can. Did the year 0 exist?
Oh yeah.
Why? Because we have 4000 BC, right?
Yeah.
And then we have 0, and then we have current. You guys with me? Why is it that way? Just cause. Why not? What the hell? That'd be something. So somebody could be born in the year 0, and if somebody else is born in the year 7, and you do 7 divided by 0, that don't mean shit.
You can't.
Huh?
You can't.
Yeah. Well, the answer is undefined or infinite, depending on what, how you feel that day. You guys semi with me?
Yeah.
Semi with me? So now watch. Ages. Somebody's age, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody is 20 years old and somebody else is 60 years old, when you divide them, does the answer make sense? 60 divided by 20 is 3. Come on, you can do it. The 60-year-old is 3 times as old. There you go. The answer makes physical sense. Maybe. How you doing? So interval. Now also, what's 60 minus 20? 40. Does that make sense? Yeah, the 60-year-old's 40 years older. But you see, that's what the earlier question. The highest level it gets to is ratio. That would be the answer. But everything that's ratio is also interval, right? Everything that's interval is also ordinal, blah, blah, blah. Okay, maybe. So it's sort of like belts in karate, right? So if you're a white belt, you might be able to be in another white belt. And what's the next belt? I don't know. Orange belt. An orange belt could be an orange and a white belt, right? And then the next belt, so forth. You guys kind of with me? It's not exactly right, but oh well. Just trying to get you guys to realize they kind of build on each other. Okay, so that's one thing with ratio is, just like the name says, it should involve division. Division makes sense. But also, mathematically, the reason division makes sense for ages, but not for years, is because 0 means what it's supposed to for ages. What is 0 supposed to mean? The absence of that thing. So when you were 0 years old, what does that mean? The amount of time you spent on the earth doesn't exist, hasn't happened. It's not there. You with me? So 0 means what it's supposed to, because your age indicates how long you've been out in the world. So when you're 0, it's the absence of amount of time you've been on the world. You guys with me? What about years? Does 0 mean the absence of time that's passed in terms of years? Year, the current year. You guys with me? And the year 0, is that when time began?
No.
You know, who are you? What the shit?
No.
No, there was time before 0, right? You guys kind of with me? How many temperature scales do you guys know? There's weird ass Fahrenheit. We're the last country on the face of the earth that uses Fahrenheit. Then you got Celsius, and then some of you guys know Kelvin. All right, let's forget about Kelvin, because does everybody know Kelvin? Probably, maybe not. I don't know. If you've taken any chemistry, you might have heard of good old Lord Kelvin, right? Okay, now stay with me. What does 0 degrees Fahrenheit mean? To San Diegans, it's a mythical thing. But what is 0 degrees Fahrenheit? Does it mean the absence of heat? No, you can get cold. You with me? What about 0 Celsius? That still don't mean the absence of heat, because you can get colder. But Kelvin, have you ever heard of absolute 0? Yeah. And I was doing physics research at my old university. And we were cooling atoms down to just nano Kelvin, which is crazy tiny, real close to 0. And you don't have to know any of this shit, I'm sorry. But it was just so cool. And they would all like clump together and form a mega atom, and you could like poke it and shit. Right? Anyway, that's enough of that. Sorry. So when you get really close to 0 degrees Kelvin, weird ass shit happens. So you should look it up sometime, some nifty YouTube videos. But 0 Kelvin means absence of energy. Everybody dead, right? So 0 Celsius, 0 Fahrenheit does not mean what it's supposed to. That's why Fahrenheit and Celsius temperature scales are not ratio. What's twice as hot as, well, let's start off here. If it was 60 degrees, and what's twice as hot as 60? 120? Hell no, maybe like 75 or something. You guys kind of with me? Yeah. What if it was 0 degrees somewhere? What's twice as hot as that? Not 0. Man, this hot is twice as hot as 0 today. I mean, that doesn't make any damn sense. You guys see what I'm saying? Maybe? So that's why 0 has to be in the right place for division to make sense. And for Fahrenheit and Celsius, we didn't put 0 kind of like in the right place. We just made it easier to think about. Okay, maybe? Okay. I love you guys. I can't read you at all. Okay. So, where would place in a race? That one's pretty easy. Let's start there. So if you're like first place, second place, what level would that be? Actually, this is interesting. You could actually argue 2 of these, but
No,
Order?
no in ordinal.
Or ratio?
It definitely isn't ratio, because 0 doesn't even exist.
But it's 1,
It's
2, 3.
Ah, ordinal, maybe. Ordinal I would take, right? Not ratio. I would take ordinal. I could consider interval, because you could say if you're in fourth place, that's 3 places behind first place. You with me? So this is why when I do a quiz, I ask you what level is this and explain. Because based on your explanation, I might take a couple different answers. There's an example I'm going to have to change on the first quiz, but it's a really good example. The number you take when you go to the DMV. Have any of you been to the DMV?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Some of us might, maybe not there. But it's sort of like a bingo game nowadays. So you actually used to have to stand in line the entire time. So just enjoy the way it is now, to be honest. But you could argue it's definitely what I intended was ordinal, especially because there's different letters, right? You like G7, G6. Oh, good. H2, F3, B11. Damn it, I'm sort of next. So, but you could argue interval within a category. Do you guys see what I'm saying? So that's why there's a little bit of wiggle room on some of those. It depends on how you explain it. Okay, maybe? Maybe? Okay. Let's see. So, oh, yeah, I forgot. Here was the division makes sense, and 0 means what it's supposed to. What about number of words you can type a minute? Number of words that somebody can type a minute. What can you definitely eliminate? Number of words. You can eliminate the first 2. Those are supposed to be purely categorical, right? Qualitative.
Would be ratio.
When you're doing like a online thing, it starts at 0 because it's
Yeah, beautiful.
0 time and then
Sure.
it increases.
No, but what's the thing I'm measuring? The number of words you can type.
Ratio. Because you can do like the amount of words divided by the time.
Shit. All right. So this is why I like to give this example. That's not right.
No.
What tells you that something is ratio is if you divide 2 data points, does the answer make sense? So let's say you can type 80 words a minute, and I can type 40 words a minute. Do you see what I'm saying? There's 2 data points.
Yeah.
Does 80 divided by 40, the answer, does it mean something physically? Yes.
Yeah.
80 divided by 40 is 2. She can type twice as many words a minute. You with me?
Yeah.
So not just because you divide it by minutes ain't got shit to do with the problem. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So don't say it's ratio because they made a percentage or it's ratio. No, it's if you take one data point and another one and divide them, does the answer make sense?
Oh, I see.
Maybe? Now if you say you can subtract them and the answer makes sense, that's right, but your answer is wrong if you say interval because you didn't go as high as you could. You always give me the highest level it's at. Otherwise your answer for everything could be nominal, right?
Yeah.
Because everything's freaking nominal at least. Okay, maybe. Some of you guys are like, oh, damn, why? All right, how you guys feeling so far? I mean, this is new. You have no idea how this is going to work until you try the homework, right? Yes?
Yeah, I just think that once we see more examples of it,
Exactly.
we'll get.
See, that's the purpose of homework. So what you do is over the weekend, you try the homework out, you definitely at least try section 1, 2, and you come back with specific questions if you had some trouble identifying. And I disagree with some of the answers in the back of the book, and some of them might be typos, some of them might be just, So if you got an answer, you check in the back, and if you're not one of the people that check what's in the back of the book, it's actually not in the back, it's at the very end of each chapter. So you can look at those, but if you try to just copy from there, there's some typos. So, if you give me an answer, this and that, solutions, but it's nowhere near what it's supposed to be, I'm like, what the hell is this? Yep.
Online, does it still give you the answers? Does online give you answers or just?
Yeah, I think the whole book is up there. So if you go past where the homework is, that's immediately starts the solutions. I think it's for the odd ones. Yeah. Just don't do too excited. Don't copy from there. Holy shit. And don't paraphrase. You're not good enough at it. You really aren't. Okay. Do your own work. And if you see something you don't understand why that's the answer, ask a question. Put a little question in your homework, Okay. I don't know. Maybe one more. Let's see. What do you got, Jeff? I don't know. What about, number of fish that I catch? I mean, that one's pretty easy. Almost any measurement is going to end up where? Almost any measurement is going to end up, you can do it. So number of fish I catch, what's that going to be? Y interval. It's not quite right, but Y interval.
Isn't it kind of like the words you can type a minute?
But that was ratio, right? Everybody with me? Number of words you can type a minute was ratio, because when I divided two data points, it made sense. And also, what does 0 mean? It's not a question about if somebody has that. That could happen, right? Somebody sits down and like, what is this thing? It's a typewriter, let's say. You guys don't know? You ever seen a typewriter?
Yeah.
And like, what is this thing? And then the minute's up. How many? I got 0. What the shit? So 0 means what it's supposed to, the absence of words. Number of fish I catch. I know it's not. It's got to be one of the second two, right? So then does 0 make sense? Does 0 mean what it should?
Yeah.
Yes. And if I caught 8 fish and the other guy caught 4 fish, I caught twice as many, right? Division makes sense. You guys see what I'm saying? That's exactly what you got to tell me to explain the answer. What about profit a company makes? So I could lose $80,000 or I could make $20,000. This one's really good. Y ratio.
Because
You
0
can
means you didn't
make no
make
progress.
0 means what it's supposed to. 0 would mean I made no profit. There you go. Yes.
So for example, let's just say like on the test, we were talking about like the fish example, we would come up with our own solution.
So your answer would be ratio, and I'm going to ask why. So almost the only way you can explain why is to give me 2 data points and show me they work, or say 0 would mean the absence of fish caught. That's the easiest way to answer that. Yeah. Or you could say, like I said, this guy caught 8, this guy caught 4, the one guy caught twice as much. You can see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then just to clarify, so then in terms of interval, what would 0 mean, or is that not relevant?
So temperature is a perfect example of this. I really want you guys to get this. So like a ruler, let's go back for a second.
Oh, okay.
A ruler, the 0 is in the right place.
Yeah.
Because on a ruler, what would 0 mean? It ain't there.
Yeah.
It's not there. Whatever let me measure the book on this thing is 0. Alright. So 0 means what it's supposed to, it's in the right place. When we made the temperature scale, did we put 0 in the right place? No.
Oh, okay.
0 is just another temperature. It doesn't mean the absence of heat. Why'd we do that? Because Kelvin, everyday Kelvin temperatures would be 300 degrees Kelvin or
Yeah.
298 degrees Kelvin. I'm like, so they just made a scale that brought it down.
Okay. So it's like more like a sliding scale.